Usually if something doesn't work in Chrome, just try Spark, it's native.
On the other hand, I have a credit union that I couldn't connect to with Firefox and I had to use Chrome. I mean, yeah,
It just depends.
yeah, it just depends. I'm trying to get rid of that credit union though, and that'll solve the problem.
Yeah. Oh, we can Chrome now?
Well, okay.
Like JavaScript.
I managed to get a fresh start, which is what I wanted.
Adobe. Adobe.
And since it is a fresh start, we have to do this upload thing again. Because I need a table. Not that. This. Upload file. Thank you very much. Yeah, I want to upload to root. Thank you very much. Come on. All right, I have to say select first, then select, then upload again. Choose file. Let's get Mr. M again. And it's very smart. It still remembers where I was. Something did. Okay. Then I can go back to the terminal. Then I can go down here and we'll just say start. Yeah. And away we go. All right. What I want to do is illustrate carefully how transactions work. So now we will do a couple of updates. Oh, this is all temporary anyway. Delete from is faster, but I still have to type from. Delete from emp where ename.
It doesn't look like you spelled correctly.
Oh, wait, right, and it right. You gotta stop me when I misspell from.
You need space.
Still not good, huh? Come on. Now the backspace key is not doing anything for me. Now it's working. I just need to do a couple of these. Names. Okay. So it says one row deleted, but the moral is it's only been deleted from a copy in memory if this is working right. So we're going to play with that idea now. One of the things that you can do with save points is like, bookmarking a book. I'm going to put a bookmark in the middle of my transaction. And I'm going to call this spot 1. And maybe call all my bookmarks spot. Semicolon. All right, save point created. So I now put a bookmark between deleting Maze and whoever it is I'm going to delete next. I'm glad this is working. Who else has a short name? Barra. Pretty short. Easy to spell. Okay. Now I'm gonna do set pages. 40, yay, select star from imp Bubba 02. And I get 13 rows, and guess who's gone? Probably Maze and Lasorda, right? And now it would be nice if the up arrow worked so I could show you what I've done. All right. Now, if you don't want to make your changes permanent, and you might have been instructed to, start a transaction and make a lot of changes temporarily, waiting for word from above, you can use the word rollback. So, here we go. Rollback. That means this will undo the current transaction, but I don't want to undo the whole thing. Fortunately, the car didn't come down the stairs. Never seen a car out there before. Roll back to save point spot 1. Semicolon. Roll back complete. Select star from. Yep, Bubba 02. 14 rows selected. So who's missing now? You remember the order in which I got rid of people.
Maze.
Maze is gone. All right. I put the save point spot in between delete Maze and delete Lasorda. So Lasorda's back because I didn't commit that part of the transaction. Now, if any point I say commit, everything everything in the current transaction, save points be darned, everything will be committed. But I haven't typed commit. Now, it turns out that you've been doing commits because every time you do quit, it's a commit. All right? So you were actually, without knowing it, engaged in transactions until you hit the word quit, and then you committed to whatever you had done. Allegedly, and I'm not in a position to claim experience, rollback is set up by Oracle to be automatic under certain circumstances, like maybe a disk crash. All right? So auto rollbacks are also supposed to exist. All right, my save point is gone. If I roll back now, it will roll back to the very beginning of the transaction. Roll back complete. No rows selected. Huh? That's bad typing, presumably. I hope I haven't lost the whole table, but we know how to get it back. Semicolon. Oh, I typed that wrong. That doesn't exist. Maybe that one. The whole table's gone. That wasn't supposed to happen. Right. A part of my transaction wasn't, but right. sometimes delete froms, if you type it wrong, will delete everything. But I thought I typed them pretty good. So I don't know where it went. Well, you can try this on your own. Maybe that's the one part, maybe we found a part of the interpreter that doesn't work right, but it was doing good for a while. All right, we got the table back. So in theory, when I said roll back the second time, it should have rolled back to the beginning of the transaction, and we should have gotten Mays back as well as Lasorda. All right, that's the way it should be. Okay, let's play some more little games. If you Google all of the pseudo-ops options involving set, you'll get a long list. We've seen set echo, set pause. Yes.
So when you say a transaction, does it include the create and insert commands too?
Yeah.
Or is it?
Yeah. No, it should include everything that affects the state of the scheme. I said DML because that's the normal application. You should be able to name it. I looked that up while we were on break. Set transaction T29 is supposed to create a transaction that's named. So you can, and that enables you to start a new transaction instead of always working only with the default transaction. If you create a new transaction, then the default one is sort of gone, and the new transaction takes effect. I'm gonna do set time on because we haven't done that. What you can see is that the prompt now changes to include time of day, 4 o'clock somewhere. I think we found another thing that's a little out of sync. We've learned something that this application is not in our time zone. And it doesn't try to figure out what our time zone is. But the syntax is correct. All right? And of course, you can set that off. That was fun. And it goes away. Now here's something else that you can do, but it's not of interest unless you've got really large tables and unless maybe you're the DBA. Set timing on. Nothing appears to have happened. Elapsed time, 0. This is supposed to be accurate to what, hundredths of a second or something like that, right? Now I don't know if this timing thing is working on our interpreter, but if you do this on your own machine, it will tell you how long the previous SQL command took to execute, based on clock time, CPU time, some time that your machine knows. Okay? So, you know, when I do this on my own machine, I get something besides 0. All right? So, time and timing work. All right. Yeah, I think I spelled it right. There you go. Sys timestamp. This is the one that I told you was new sometime this millennium. All right. And it's a long version of sysdate. And it's a lot more precise if you're creating a temporal database and want to be that precise. And besides, the default display of sysdate is, doesn't include time, although we know that it's buried in there and we can extract it if we work hard with a 2-chart. Okay, so those are 3 things having to do with time, one of which I told you about but never illustrated because I couldn't. And we got transactions out of the way, so transactions are testable on Thursday, and I'll ask something about them. They're sufficiently important that you should know something about transactions. So the big keywords are commit, rollback, save point. Transaction is a keyword that I did not illustrate. All right. Let's see what I can retrieve. So we'll select the root directory, we'll try and upload, and we'll see what I can find on my disk drive. So far, it's going good. Yay! All right, I think we've decided to do a little PLSQL because this worked. Let me pull that down. Okay. There's an accept prompt in here. Please enter an annual salary. So we'll get to illustrate that, which we haven't done before. We'll see if these guys can do that. I'll bet they can. Set echo on some comments, which we'll skip. These are variables which are known to SQL Plus. Okay? Now, you can do this in SQL Plus. We haven't done it because we haven't had any use for SQL Plus variables. But in SQL Plus, you can create variables. All right? You normally don't need them, so we don't tell you how to do it. It's like if you're a good teacher of Lisp, you don't tell people how to save anything. All right. So you could say variable or var. And they just look like field declarations, okay? So, fine. And I was just illustrating how things go. This is an initialization thing. So I'm initializing date 2 to a particular date for the heck of it. So I have created 3 variables, and if you want to, you can call them SQL Plus variables, but I like to call them global variables, and we'll see why. So my preferred term for those vars in this context is global variable. All right? The other possible name is bind, B-I-N-D, and that might be in the comments that are so grayed out I can't read. Okay. So 3 possible names for these variables would be SQL Plus variables, bind variables, or local variables. All right. This word, declare, begins a PLSQL block. And at this point, I really wish there was a board over here I could write on while we were looking at the screen, but all right. I could write big on my arm with a marker pen. a PLSQL block starts with the word declare and ends with the word end. That's how you know you're looking at a PLSQL block. So what is a PLSQL block? It's a programming language in which Oracle has made it easy to embed SQL one way or another.
Can you repeat that?
Okay, and we'll see how. And I've got a lot of the examples, and it's going to take us a while to get the full story.
Ends up.
All right. It would be fair to call it a block-structured language because anytime you see the words begin and end, it's a block-structured language. What's true about a block-structured language is you identify blocks with keywords like open brace, close brace, or words like begin, end. And in a block-structured language, it's always possible to nest blocks. So I should be able to nest a block in a block. All right? Now, I don't have any examples where I do that, but you can play with it. You can nest a block in a block. Okay. Now, begin is also, of course, a keyword. So after the word declare, you make declarations. After the word begin, you do executables. And that looks a lot like normal programming language. So this is familiar to us. I described it to you before, but the idea of PLSQL in my mind is it's kind of a simple toy little programming language which serves as a vehicle for embedded SQL. So when people talk about embedded SQL, they're talking about putting SQL into something, not putting something into SQL. All right? You have to know which way it goes. All right, fine. After the word declare, we have what I call local variables or block variables. Okay? Now, these variables have normal block scope. If I embed a block in the block, then, you know, the scope of a variable is the block in which it is declared minus any subblocks in which it is redeclared, yada, 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 the usual block-structured language crap. Okay? So you can talk about the scope of the local variables. The scope of the global variables, hey, they're global. I can talk about the global variables inside the block that follows it. That's why we call them global. All right. All right, now we get a little further. So we have this local variable, and this one, just so you could see all three kinds of variables in one short example, that's a substitution or runtime variable. Okay, so my purpose in designing this example was to show all three variables within, 12 lines of code or whatever it is. Hallelujah. All right, so we have these two local variables. This is a naming convention, the underscore, that Oracle suggests you might want to follow. I never want to follow it, but I'm just being a good kid once, You can do constants, then you can start them with a C, whatever. So normally I would just call these salad date. Then we begin the executable stuff, and then we have to slow down and pay some attention. :mosal. Yeah, what's a mosal? Yeah, it's that one. So mosal is a global variable, and when you reference a global variable in a PLSQL block, you must precede it by a colon. Colon says, I'm a global. Okay? And when you reference a global inside the PLSQL block, that's when it's called a bind variable. We are binding the variable inside the block to some global occurrence outside the block. Okay? So this reference is for sure called a bind variable, as is that one. Yay. All right, so we played around a little bit with the number formatting stuff. Fine. So, did I ever divide by 12? Yeah, I divided by 12 here to get a monthly salary. I don't know, this is the sale. And this is what we're going to get when we run this, we're going to supply the answer from the keyboard. Okay, then fine. So the purpose of this little program is to convert annual salaries to monthly salaries. We've seen almost the whole thing, but not quite. Now we've seen the whole thing. This last line, print, is outside the PLSQL block. That means that print is known to SQL Plus as our var and variable. Those keywords belong to SQL Plus. So I'm going to print the monthly salary that I calculated inside the block from outside the block, which means that for the global variables, their scope goes past the block as you would hope it would. If I tried to refer to a local variable outside the block, it should be out of scope and it should not have any idea what I'm talking about, right? Okay. Well, anyway, so that's our first little example. And now we can go to the terminal and see how our friend is doing. So, raising this high enough to get to the prompt, we're going to try starting PLSQL.SQL. Please enter an annual salary. All right, that's our friend, the substitution variable talking, and you will notice that the except prompt worked. It didn't say, please enter a value. It said, much more specific. Please enter an annual salary. Okay, so we'll enter Willie Mays' salary. And then it tells us his monthly salary is $20,000, which, yeah, it's late, but it still sounds okay. All right. So that seemed to work fine. And we can see everything here all at once. So, except for the maybe a little bit up on top. Anyway, so I'll of course email you this later tonight or early tomorrow, and then you can try to figure out some place to run it yourself. But to review the bidding, what we saw was global variables which can become bind variables inside a block. That block is what I call an anonymous block. I call it an anonymous block because it doesn't have a name. Ha 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 ha. Nor do I know any way to name it. So what you usually run in PLSQL are anonymous blocks. I'll jump way ahead and tell you that named blocks are not just blocks with names. PLSQL wants the named blocks to be names of stored functions and stored procedures. And of course, to store a function or a procedure, it's a good idea if it has a name. Otherwise, how can you call it? All right. So the normal PLSQL block, which is what we've seen so far, is anonymous. And, sometime Thursday in that 4-hour class, we'll get around to named blocks. And then we'll see what our little interpreter friend will do with this. And I think that at least for the purposes of the session, it will store functions and procedures with me, but I haven't tried it yet. I'm new to this interpreter. Okay. It's time to go get another example. So, let's see, does it still think that I don't have to pick a directory? Let's upload another file. No, we have to do this every freaking time. That's a little annoying. Thank you very much. Eventually, with your help, I'll get faster at this. PLSQL2.SQL, open, yay, upload, and there it is, and we'll see if this is anything I want to do something with. I'm not gonna run this, so we'll just look at this, but I'll of course email it to you. This is the sequence for a constant in PLSQL. It uses the wonderful keyword constant. And presumably, if I try to change it down here, it will, raise some flack about it. It probably takes it serious.